Some updates this morning. This is something that we reported over the weekend, but now NBC News is also reporting. They say they have 3 law enforcement sources who are emphasizing that the case has not gone cold, which is also what sources have been telling me. Someone said it might be chilling, but has not gone cold, whatever, I don't know, whichever you want to read into that. So the hope is that there's a lot we don't know that's happening behind the scenes right now. There was kind of some drama yesterday. There was these women that showed up like searchers, and they had a shovel, and they started like digging in the ground here in this area. Like, I don't really know what they were doing, but anyway, I think that's why the sheriff's deputies ended up getting called out here. So there's been some kind of characters that have shown up. But most people have really good intentions. A lot of the neighbors are just so upset because they've known Nancy for so long. So I got a couple of things I'm going to work on today, and I'll update you guys later, but I just wanted to check in, and we may get an update later from the sheriff's office, so I'll keep you guys posted.
She was already gone by the time anyone realized something was wrong. Not missing, not wandered off, not a woman who stepped out for air and lost her way in the dark. Gone. In the way that sends a cold current through the chest of every detective who has ever stood in an empty room and felt the weight of a decision that was made there, a decision that was not hers. The last thing that registered before the world around her went completely silent was a timestamp, 2:28 in the morning, and then nothing, not a scream, not a struggle, not even the faint digital whisper of a door alarm or triggered motion sensor. Just a house that had been alive with technology 1 second, and the next second was hollow. Every system, every device, every connection to the outside world severed, simultaneously, surgically. As if someone had reached into the chest of the building and pulled out its beating heart. That is not an accident, that is a declaration. What investigators would later uncover in the weeks that followed is the kind of thing that makes seasoned law enforcement officers go quiet in briefings, not because they don't have words for it, but because the words that exist don't feel like enough. There were things buried in that desert that were never meant to be found. Things hidden not in haste, not in panic, but with patience, with knowledge, with the kind of cold, deliberate intention that tells you whoever did this had done their homework. They had watched, they had waited, and when the moment came, they did not hesitate for even a single second. We are going to walk you through every layer of this case, every discovery, every chilling detail that law enforcement has been quietly piecing together. But we have to warn you, what you are about to hear is deeply disturbing. This case involves the targeted disappearance of a real person, a real woman with a real life, and the details of how it was carried out will be difficult for some viewers. Please take care of yourselves as we go through this together. If you are new here, welcome to True Crime Files, the channel dedicated to going deeper than the headlines, beyond the speculation, and into the truth that the story is actually telling. Hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss a case, and drop a comment below letting us know where in the world you are watching from tonight. We have viewers from every corner of the globe, and honestly, that never gets old. Now let's talk about Nancy Guthrie, and the night the desert swallowed her whole. Nancy Guthrie was not famous. She was not a public figure. She was an 84-year-old woman who had spent more than half a century building a quiet, rooted life in Tucson, Arizona. She was born Nancy Ellen Long on January 27, 1942, in Fort Wright, Kentucky. In the early 1970s, she relocated to the Tucson area with her family and never left. That community became her home for over 50 years. She married Charles Guthrie. In 1988, Charles died at age 49 while on a mining exploration trip in Mexico. Nancy was left to raise 3 children largely on her own, Savannah, Annie, and Cameron. She did it. Her daughter Savannah would go on to become the co-anchor of NBC's Today show. That connection becomes relevant later in this story, but Nancy's life was never defined by her daughter's career. She had her own. Neighbors and family described her as mentally sharp, fiercely independent, and deeply connected to her community. She attended church regularly. She was active in her neighborhood. She lived alone in her Catalina Foothills home by choice. At 84, she had limited mobility and depended on daily medication for a chronic condition. Sheriff Chris Nanos would later say it plainly, She could not walk 50 yards by herself. That physical reality is not a minor detail. It is central to everything that follows, because someone knew it and came anyway. At 5:32 in the evening on January 31, Nancy took an Uber to her daughter Annie's home for dinner. Her son-in-law Tommaso Shini, Annie's husband, was there. It was a normal Saturday evening with family. At 9:40 p.m., Tommaso drove Nancy back to her Catalina Foothills home. At 9:50, her garage door closed. Shini drove away. He is the last known person to have seen Nancy Guthrie alive. Then the house went quiet. For nearly 4 hours, nothing was recorded. At 1:47 a.m. on February 1, the doorbell camera at Nancy's front door was physically disconnected by a masked and gloved individual. Not hacked, not remotely disabled. Someone reached up and removed it. At 2:12 a.m., motion was detected on the property. At 2:28 a.m., the app connected to Nancy's pacemaker disconnected from her phone. Every digital signal tied to Nancy Guthrie went silent at that moment. The next morning, a member of her church called the family. Nancy had not joined the scheduled live-streamed service. Relatives arrived at her home at 11:56 a.m. and searched the property. No sign of her. Her phone was still inside. Her medication was still inside. Nothing suggested she had packed or left willingly. At 12:03 p.m., the family called 911. Deputies arrived at 12:15. What they found when they walked through that door confirmed this was no ordinary missing person report. When deputies walked into Nancy Guthrie's home on the afternoon of February 1, what they found was enough to change the classification of the entire case before the day was over. Bloodstains were found at or near the front entrance of the residence. Forensic DNA testing later confirmed the blood belonged to Nancy. Video footage captured by media outlets at the scene appeared to show a visible trail near the front door. Officials declined to specify the nature or extent of any injuries. The documented fact stands on its own. The doorbell camera was gone, not remotely disabled, not hacked, physically removed from the property. Inside the home, nothing suggested Nancy had packed or prepared to leave. Her phone was there. Her medication was there. Her personal belongings were undisturbed. Investigators described the conditions inside as very concerning and entirely inconsistent with a voluntary departure. Within 24 hours, Sheriff Chris Nanos upgraded the case from a missing person report to a criminal investigation. Homicide detectives were brought in. The FBI joined formally. U.S. Customs and Border Protection added aerial surveillance and border monitoring resources. Police dogs, drones, and search and rescue teams swept the surrounding Catalina Foothills. Nothing was found. By February 2, the official classification was confirmed: kidnapping investigation. Nanos told CBS News directly, "I believe she was abducted." 9 days after Nancy Guthrie vanished, the FBI gave the public its first look at the person believed to be responsible. On February 10, 2026, FBI Director Kash Patel released surveillance footage through official FBI channels and his personal X account. The images and short video came from the Nest doorbell camera outside Nancy's home and showed exactly what happened at her front door in the early hours of February 1. The suspect is masked and gloved. The FBI confirmed the individual is believed to be male, armed, and carrying a 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker pack, a standard mass-market backpack sold at Walmart. A holstered firearm is visible on his waistband. Based on footage analysis, his estimated height is between 5 feet 9 inches and 5 feet 10 inches. Average build. A black mustache is visible where the mask does not cover his face. Investigators and the public would come to refer to him simply as Porch Guy. The footage shows his full sequence at the door. He cups the camera lens with one hand, walks briefly into the front yard, returns to the door holding a small flashlight in his mouth, then attempts to cover the camera using what appears to be a plant or cluster of flowers. His movements throughout are calm and unhurried. International security consultant Carl de la Guerra analyzed the footage publicly. His read was direct but nuanced. The suspect's natural walking pace, he said, suggests someone in his life will recognize him, but the firearm told a different story. It was holstered improperly, positioned over the waistband in a way that indicated no real firearms training. De la Guerra's words: he had never seen a pistol worn that way by anyone who knew anything about firearms. His conclusion was that this operation may have been more improvised than it appeared, which means someone close to this person likely knows something. On February 12, authorities released additional physical details confirming the backpack model. Savannah Guthrie reposted the FBI images on her Instagram and urged anyone with information to contact law enforcement immediately. The following day, February 13, FBI and SWAT units conducted operations in a neighborhood approximately 2 miles from Nancy's residence. Aerial footage of the activity circulated widely. Investigators also returned to the home of Annie Guthrie, Nancy's daughter, located roughly 4 miles away. FBI agents and Pima County deputies went door to door in the surrounding area. 3 unmarked vehicles were parked in Annie's driveway. Agents left with a bag. Sheriff Nanos later addressed speculation directly. All immediate family members and their spouses had been cleared. His statement left no room for ambiguity. Any suggestion otherwise, he said, is not only wrong, it is cruel. That same evening, a person of interest was detained following a traffic stop in Rio Rico, Arizona, approximately 60 miles south of Tucson near the U.S.-Mexico border. A search warrant was executed on a nearby property and vehicle. No arrest was made. No name was released. The field investigation was moving, but something else was happening simultaneously, something chaotic, public, and deeply unusual. The ransom notes had started arriving. While federal agents were executing search warrants and processing physical evidence, something was unfolding in the media that complicated the investigation in ways nobody anticipated. Within days of Nancy's disappearance, ransom notes began arriving not to the Guthrie family directly, but to media outlets. TMZ received one, KOLD News 13 in Tucson received one. The demand was specific: millions of dollars in Bitcoin sent to a named wallet address. The confirmed figure was $6 million. A deadline of 5 p.m. on February 9 was attached, with consequences implied if payment was not made. Former FBI agents who commented publicly noted immediately that routing ransom demands through media rather than directly to a victim's family was highly unusual. The Pima County Sheriff's Department confirmed all materials were being forwarded to detectives coordinating with the FBI. Then on February 5, a California man was arrested on federal charges for impersonating Nancy's abductor and separately demanding ransom from the Guthrie family. That scheme was confirmed to be entirely unrelated to the notes already in circulation, meaning there were now multiple ransom threads running simultaneously, of varying credibility. On February 7, Savannah Guthrie posted a video on Instagram alongside her siblings Annie and Cameron. 3 words: "We will pay." February 9 came and went. Both deadlines passed. No verified contact from anyone credibly holding Nancy was made public. The following day, February 10, activity was recorded in the Bitcoin wallet connected to the ransom note. Arizona's family confirmed at least one transaction was made to that address around 5 p.m. The amount was not disclosed. Former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer, host of the podcast Break the Case, responded publicly with an unusual recommendation. She advised the family to consider paying a partial amount, not as surrender, but as a forensic tool. Bitcoin, she explained, is highly traceable. Any attempt to convert it to cash would leave a blockchain trail investigators could follow. Blockchain forensics expert Bezalel Ethan Raviv, CEO of Lionsgate Network, echoed that position to the New York Post, stating that any payment into that wallet could generate actionable investigative leads. The notes kept coming. As of April 2026, TMZ and other outlets continued receiving new messages. The most recent, reported in early April, claimed Nancy had been seen alive in the Mexican state of Sonora and that she had since died. It was the first note to allege her death and reference a specific location. The FBI has not confirmed any note as definitively connected to Nancy's actual abductors. The timing of that final note was not lost on anyone. It arrived on April 6, the same day Savannah Guthrie returned to the Today Show for the first time since her mother's disappearance. Coffindaffer addressed it directly. The fact that someone chose that specific day, she said, was stunning. Sheriff Nanos described the motive as possibly financial, tied to Savannah's public profile, or possibly revenge for something unspecified. No motive has been confirmed. Before we get into the physical evidence trail and the DNA developments that most outlets have reported incorrectly, if you are not yet subscribed to True Crime Files, right now is the moment. This case moves fast. When it breaks, subscribers will have the full picture first. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and let us keep going. With no named suspect and no confirmed sighting, investigators shifted focus to what the physical evidence could tell them. The backpack worn by the suspect in the doorbell footage had been identified as a 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker pack, a product sold at Walmart stores across the country. Detectives spent days reviewing surveillance footage and online purchase records from multiple Tucson-area Walmart locations, trying to match a transaction to a face or an account. The problem was straightforward. Mass-market products sold at high volume leave almost no unique trail. Thousands of identical units move through those stores every week. No arrest or identification came from that investigation thread. The more promising lead came from the ground. A black glove was recovered approximately 2 miles from Nancy's home. FBI officials confirmed it appeared to match the gloves worn by the suspect in the doorbell footage. A DNA profile was extracted and run through CODIS, the FBI's national database of criminal offenders. That search produced a result. A local restaurant worker was identified through the match, questioned, and subsequently cleared of any involvement. The lead closed. Additional DNA recovered from inside Nancy's home presented a different and more persistent problem. In late February, Sheriff Nanos confirmed the samples were mixed, meaning genetic material from more than one person was present in the same sample. Separating individual contributors from a mixed profile requires a process called deconvolution, and current technology makes that process slow, uncertain, and in some cases, inconclusive. Nanos told a local neighborhood watch group that isolating what investigators needed could take 6 or more additional months. He also confirmed that as many as 5 labs across the country were working on different aspects of the Guthrie evidence. As of April 2026, approximately 24 Pima County and FBI investigators remained actively assigned to the case. The mixed DNA was not a dead end. It was a wall that required better tools to get through, and those tools were already being assembled. In the days immediately following Nancy's abduction, the Pima County Sheriff's Department sent a hair sample recovered from her home to a private forensics lab in Florida, the lab the department regularly contracts for evidence analysis. That sample was tested. It did not produce a definitive result. The mixed DNA problem that had stalled other evidence threads stalled this one too. Then in mid-April 2026, NewsNation senior correspondent Brianentin, who has been on the ground in Arizona reporting this case since its earliest days, reported that the DNA evidence had now been sent to the FBI's laboratory for advanced analysis. The public and several media outlets treated this as a major breakthrough. The FBI responded within days to correct the record. On April 20, FBI Assistant Director of Public Affairs Ben Williamson posted publicly, "Still receiving inquiries on this. This is not new evidence or information." The FBI had requested the sample 2 months earlier. The Sheriff's Department had sent it to the private Florida lab instead. 11 weeks later, that lab transferred the original hair sample to the FBI laboratory. The FBI's statement to ABC News was direct. They remain fully committed to the investigation. That timeline is significant on its own. The FBI asked for this material months before they received it. That gap became one of the sharpest points of criticism aimed at Sheriff Nanos and his department. What the FBI is now doing with the sample is what matters most. The technology being applied is whole genome sequencing, a method that extracts nuclear DNA not just from hair roots, but from the shaft of a rootless hair. It does not require the follicle. This is the same technology that was central to the conviction of Rex Heuermann, the Gilgo Beach serial killer who admitted to murdering 8 women between 1993 and 2010 and pleaded guilty on April 8, 2026. The San Francisco-based Lab Astrea Forensics, credited with the forensic work that helped break the Heuermann case, is now believed to be involved in the Guthrie investigation, according to Fox News reporting. Leading genetic genealogist C.C. Moore, who works with Paraben Nanolabs in Virginia and has spoken repeatedly with Entin throughout this investigation, was clear about what this means. Hair, she said, can absolutely make this case solvable. If the sample belongs to the suspect rather than a family member or Nancy herself, whole genome sequencing opens a direct identification pathway. She acknowledged the deconvolution challenge remains, but added, she does not think it is the end. Forensics professor April Stonehouse of Arizona State University, who also spoke with Entin, reinforced the point from a different angle. A suspect who enters a home wearing gloves is taking precautions, but precautions are never perfect. Someone in a space they do not belong in will leave something behind. Entin himself, after weeks of field reporting, put it plainly. He believes DNA is what will ultimately crack this case. And if a clean enough profile can be isolated, one more tool becomes available: investigative genetic genealogy. This technique traces familial DNA connections through public databases and builds probabilistic family trees that can lead investigators to an identity even without a direct database match. C.C. Moore, one of the country's leading practitioners of this method, confirmed it remains on the table the moment deconvolution produces a usable profile. The science is moving, but while laboratories work through evidence, the investigation itself had been facing a different kind of pressure: institutional, public, and pointed directly at the man running it. Sheriff Chris Nanos has been the public face of this investigation from day one. But as weeks passed without an arrest, the scrutiny directed at him and his department grew into something the case could no longer ignore. Fox News reported that the lead investigator assigned to the Nancy Guthrie case had no prior homicide experience. That revelation landed hard with a public already watching closely. Early in the investigation, Nanos acknowledged that he had opened the crime scene, meaning access to the property was not fully restricted during a period when forensic preservation was most critical. Whether that decision affected evidence collection cannot be confirmed, but it became a sustained point of criticism. On April 7, 2026, the Pima County Board of Supervisors voted unanimously to formally question Nanos about his department's management. The request followed a sworn deposition he had given in a separate First Amendment lawsuit brought by a former department sergeant. Supervisors asked him to clarify specific statements made during that deposition. Separately, an independent firm released findings from a workplace harassment complaint against Nanos, filed by a former department lieutenant who had run against him in the 2024 election. Calls for his resignation circulated on social media and in public commentary. He has not resigned. When rumors spread in mid-April 2026 that a new person of interest had been detained, Nanos addressed it with a single word to Fox News reporter Michael Ruiz: nope. Despite the pressure, Nanos confirmed that approximately 24 Pima County and FBI investigators remain actively assigned to the case. The sheriff's department also increased neighborhood patrols after residents complained about social media influencers trespassing near the home. His position on the case itself has not changed. This was a targeted kidnapping. The motive was financial, revenge-related, or both. No suspect has been named. No family member has been implicated. Savannah Guthrie has co-anchored NBC's Today show for over a decade. When her mother disappeared, she walked away from it without hesitation, including her assignment to co-host the 2026 Winter Olympics opening ceremonies. On February 7, alongside siblings Annie and Cameron, she posted 3 words on Instagram: "We will pay." On February 24, the family announced a $1 million reward for information leading to Nancy's recovery, with a separate $200,000 reward for information leading to an arrest. The combined pool now exceeds $1.2 million. In a March interview with co-anchor Hoda Kotb, Savannah described her decision to return to work as deliberate. Her words, "I want to smile, and when I do, it will be real. My joy will be my protest." She returned to the Today Show on April 6, welcomed back by co-host Craig Melvin. NBC implemented protocols ensuring Savannah is removed from set if breaking case news emerges during a live broadcast. On that same day, her first day back, a new ransom note arrived claiming Nancy had died. Whether the timing was coincidental remains unconfirmed. Annie Guthrie and Tommaso Shini, the last person to see Nancy alive, have remained largely out of public view. Both were cleared. The case, now past 11 weeks, remains open and without a named suspect. As of April 22, 2026, here is where every thread stands. No suspect has been named. No arrest has been made. No confirmed sighting of Nancy Guthrie has been verified by any law enforcement agency. The FBI and Pima County Sheriff's Department remain jointly active. Approximately 24 investigators are assigned. The hair sample from Nancy's home is now at the FBI laboratory undergoing whole genome sequencing. Results could take additional months. Up to 5 labs across the country are processing various aspects of the evidence. Astria Forensics in San Francisco is believed to be among them. The ransom note situation remains unresolved. Multiple notes have reached media outlets. None has been confirmed as coming from Nancy's actual abductors. The Bitcoin wallet received at least 1 transaction on February 10. No arrest has resulted from that thread. The Walmart backpack investigation produced no identification. The Glove CODIS lead, the restaurant worker, was cleared and closed. The Rio Rico traffic stop and search warrant execution in February produced no public result. Sheriff Nanos remains under scrutiny from the Pima County Board of Supervisors. The United Cajun Navy's revised search assistance proposal is still under review. The combined reward of $1.2 million remains unclaimed. Entin continues reporting from the field. Savannah Guthrie has returned to work. NBC protocols remain in place. Nancy has been missing for 81 days. Nancy Guthrie turned 84 on January 27, 2026. 4 days later, she was taken from her home. She spent more than 50 years in Tucson. She raised 3 children after losing her husband. She stayed connected to her community, her church, and her neighbors well into her 80s. She was not a public figure. She was a private person living a quiet, independent life, and that life was interrupted by someone who planned it, executed it, and has not yet been held accountable. What happened on the night of January 31 was not random. The evidence confirms that. The camera was disabled, the home was entered, she was removed, and the person responsible has not been identified. The tools now working on this case are real and capable. Whole genome sequencing, investigative genetic genealogy, and blockchain forensics are not distant possibilities. They are active right now, processing evidence that could produce a name. This case has not gone cold. 24 investigators remain assigned. Multiple labs are working. The combined reward of $1.2 million is unclaimed and available. If you have any information, the FBI tip line is 1-800-CALL-FBI. The Pima County Sheriff's tip line is 523-514900. Someone out there knows something, and the science closing in on this case may already be finding them. If this documentary gave you a fuller picture than what the headlines provided, share it. Every share puts this case in front of someone who might hold the missing piece. Subscribe to True Crime Files so you are here when this case breaks, and it will break. Drop a comment below telling us where you are watching from and what you think investigators should prioritize next. This is True Crime Files. We will see you on the next one.